Do you know that you are God's baby? Do you know that you are God's baby girl? Do you know that you're his son? That God isn't just God, but he's your father. Moreover, he's your daddy. Do you know what that means? There's an intimate relationship between a daddy and his baby. The older you get, you don't want to feel babyish, so you call your father Dad. But God's desire is that he be your daddy. Paul said that now our relationship with God is that he's Abba, Father. Abba translates daddy. And it takes a special vulnerability to call the Father daddy, because you put yourself in a position that can be considered uncomfortable. And so in order to find the fullness of what Jesus bought and paid for you, and with regard to your relationship with the Father, you have to come down and accept him as daddy. You have to be vulnerable to find intimacy and understand that he's your daddy. The daddy takes care of you. Daddy provides for you. Daddy nourishes you. Daddy takes care of you and everything pertaining to you. He's your daddy. You know, in this life, in this natural life, it's different from in the kingdom, although not dissimilar in other ways. For example, when a baby learns to walk, falling is all part of learning to walk. Isn't that right? The same way when you walk in the Spirit or you walk by faith, falling is part of learning to walk. And when the baby falls, the parent does not look at the child with disdaining eyes. Neither is the parent angry at the child for falling, because everyone knows that falling's all part of learning to walk. Therefore, when you walk by faith and when you walk in the Spirit and you have a fall, know that God is not angry with you. The only problem the Father has is when you don't get up. And so understand that there is a similarity in walking by faith and walking in the Spirit, and that you're his baby. You're his baby girl. You're his son. You're his child. And that's how he views you. And if you'll let him be your daddy, he'll do things for you. Let me tell you, it's different. It's dissimilar in this way, because in the natural, the older the baby gets, the older the child gets, the less dependent he becomes, the less dependent he is with the parent. Isn't that so? He needs the parent less and less. And it is characterized, this is how his growing up is characterized, on how independent he becomes. But how many know that in the kingdom and in our relationship with the Father, it's different? In the kingdom, the more dependent upon God you mature. The more faith you have in God, you're considered maturing and growing up in the faith. You see, God is looking for your dependency. He doesn't want you to rush to grow up in independence. And when you fall, how many knows that when you fall, the parent runs to pick the baby up? Don't you know that God wants to pick you up after a fall, after a failure? He doesn't want you scuffling to your feet to pick yourself up. He wants to be your daddy. He is your daddy, but he needs you to accept this relationship, that he can prove himself to be your daddy.